Uh, a very good morning, everyone. Uh, Still the participants are joining, but however, we will initiate with the program. It is with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you to this webinar on water pricing in India. As we gather today, we are faced with critical issues of tackling climate change impact, increasing climate resilience, and achieving sustainable development and management of our precious water resources. The topic of water pricing is very pertinent in such a context. The way we value and manage our water has profound implications for its conservation, allocation, and equitable distribution. The objective of conducting this webinar is to disseminate knowledge and exchange ideas on best practices, challenges, and opportunities related to water pricing. The online program is intended to benefit not only the government officials, state and central government departments, organizations who are involved in water resources development and management, but also all the other stakeholders. We have received registrations from even academic institutions, NGOs, private organizations. We all welcome them. We have devised this webinar in such a manner that one can attend it from their workplace without affecting their work. We have kept only 2 sessions per day, which will be conducted through this Cisco WebEx platform. And each session will be of 1 hour duration and followed by a question and answer session. Timings along with the links we have shared to the mail IDs that you have provided in the registration form. You can even share those links with other participants, interested participants. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. And please note that the same link will be used for day 1. For the afternoon session also, we will use the same link. And for tomorrow, there will be a different link, which we have already mailed for tomorrow's morning and afternoon sessions. We will be having the first session on rationalization of water rates, an effective tool for increasing water use efficiency by D.S. Chaskar sir, Chief Engineer and Head of National Water Academy, Central Water Commission, Pune. It is his constant encouragement and guidance with which we are conducting this webinar. I will briefly introduce him and then I will hand it over to him. Sri D.S. Chaskar sir, as I said, he is the Chief Engineer and Head of National Water Academy, and he is also holding the additional charge of Mahi and Tapi Basin Organization of Central Water Commission at Gandhinagar. He has varied experience ranging from administration, financial management, infrastructure and institutional development, and training and capacity building, human resources management, monitoring of irrigation projects, hydrological observations, etc. He is a postgraduate in design engineering from IIT Mumbai, and he joined Central Water Engineering Service Group A as Assistant Director at CWC, Central Water Commission, in 1991. As Assistant Director, he was associated with the cost appraisal of water resources projects and design of hydromechanical equipment for a number of water resources projects. He was instrumental in the use of CAD, computer-aided design, particularly finite element method, and its application to hydraulic structures. As a Deputy Director, he worked in Technical Coordination Directorate of CWC headquarters, and then he also worked as Deputy Director, Administration and Coordination at National Water Academy, Pune. He later became Director, Administration and Coordination at NWA. He has handled general administration, establishment, accounts, contracts, infrastructure development, and running and maintenance of NWA complex. In addition to his normal duties as core faculty member of NWA, he has significant contribution in the infrastructure development works at NWA. He conducted more than 100 training programs at NWA on varied subjects. He also conducted international distance learning programs in association with the World Meteorological Organization. He is well versed in IT skills, particularly database management and web application development. He also worked as director monitoring and superintending engineer coordination at Mahi MTBO office, which now he is heading as chief engineer, as he is holding the additional charge. Thereby, he also handled monitoring of projects and processing of central assistance proposals under PM KSY, AIBP, CAT-WM, which are the schemes of Government of India schemes. And he also superintended hydrological observation and flood forecasting, including water quality and sediment observations in 16 west river basins of Western India, Saurashtra and Kutch region. So now I would like to formally welcome Sri D.S. Chaskar sir to deliver today's session on rationalization of water rates, which is an effective tool for increasing water use efficiency. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaitanya ji. Hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good morning to everybody and very warm welcome all of you for joining this webinar. I'm very happy that National Water Academy is conducting a webinar on this subject for the very first time. The subject which is so vital for the water sector. We have taken up the task of awareness creation and knowledge sharing in this matter, in the subject. And I must congratulate Chaitanya ji for formulating and organizing this webinar, which is bringing views of different authors, different experts pertaining to the water use efficiency issue, the groundwater rates, the water resources regulatory authorities, and also a case study of Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority, which is the only functioning regulatory authority in India. So it's really heartening to see that more than 400 people officers have registered for this webinar. So it indicates the kind of importance of the subject and interest among the stakeholders in understanding the issues and challenges related to water rates and water charges. I will start my presentation. Just give a minute for sharing my PPT with all of you. I hope my presentation is visible. Please, anybody can confirm. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Visible. Okay, thank you. So the first session is on rationalization of water rates and its significance for water use efficiency. So I will start my presentation right away. We all know that water is a economic and social good. It is a quintessential resource serving not only as an economic asset, but also as a cornerstone of social welfare. Being an economic good, an appropriate cost is supposed to be associated with its delivery in line with the expenditure by the service provider, both on capital cost as well as O&M cost. But being a social good and a basic human need, it is incumbent upon the state, the governments, to provide sufficient water to the population to sustain human life. That is water required for domestic use, drinking water and sanitation, and also water required for production of food at little cost or nominal cost. There are many countries in the world in which the right to access to water is enshrined in the constitution. Even though in Indian constitution it has not been specifically mentioned, the courts over a period of time have interpreted that a right to access to water is inbuilt into the right to life. And that way, in India also, there is a heavy tilt towards treating as a social good. Now, treating water as a economic good or treating water as a social good, there are two extreme considerations when it comes to water charges. But practically, for a country, for a state, actual charging the water depends upon so many factors. First of all, what are the constitutional provisions? What is the legal framework in that country? What is the availability of water in space and type? Probably if the water availability is in plenty, then probably the need for water charges is not that much. But for a country like India, where there is a large variation in space and time, the water charges are so relevant. It also depends upon priorities of different sectors. What are the national objectives? What is the socio-economic condition of the population? Uh, Ability to pay, affordability, these are also very important considerations for structuring the water charges and also for its recovery. Public awareness about water charges is very important because we all know that water is a very sensitive issue and it's not possible to impose water charges on the population, on the people for various sectors. Just like that, we need to take them into confidence. It also depends upon the institutional mechanisms which are in place for water service providers. What are the mechanism in place for structuring the water charges? What are the institutional mechanism for recovery of the water charges? How much is the stakeholders' involvement in water resources management is also a very crucial and important issue. And last but not the least, the political will. Because as I said, water charges is a very sensitive issue, and many forces are at interplay when water charges are imposed by the government. Though water charges are never as a tax, it is always as a user charges, but it requires a lot of political will to rationalize the water charge, to impose the water charge. The issues that I'm going to highlight in my presentation is basically some basic about the water charges. Recommendation of the various committees constituted by Government of India on the issue of water charges. What is the policy recommendations in national water policy? What are the different approaches and principles for pricing of irrigation water, particularly basically because irrigation forms the biggest water use sector in India, consuming about utilizing about 80 to 85% of water. What are the different pricing methods, charging methods? What are the international practices in other parts of the world? Uh, what is the role of independent water regulatory authorities in formulating the charges, in reviewing these charges regularly, and also for allocation of water to different water sectors? And lastly, we will also see what is the status of water pricing presently in India by taking examples of certain states. What are the charges there, and how they compare with it compares with the recovery of the charges with respect to the O&M cost. Now, we all know that there is a ever increasing demand for water from all sectors, and the increasing gap between the demand and the supply is forcing the governments to take all possible measures to increase the water use efficiency so that available water resources are used most efficiently by each sector. We have various tools available for demand management, like legal and institutional framework. Through laws and policy measures, we can do it. By providing appropriate financial support to operation and maintenance, which is one of the critical area in India because of the O&M issues of our water resources assets. We are unable to use them to the fullest capacity. The performance of these assets are much below than the benchmark performances. We also need water sector reforms. But one of the prime strategy for demand management is increasing water use efficiency, which can be achieved through modernization of water conveyance and delivery system, incentivizing efficient use of water by all water use sector, whether it is industry, whether it is irrigation, whether it is a domestic, whether it is energy, benchmarking and auditing mechanisms for irrigation projects, for equipments, for industrial processes, for industrial products, improved agriculture practices, and micro irrigation systems to optimize the water use. But it is also widely recognized that unless there is a value, scarcity as well as economic value associated with the water, the initiatives taken for increasing water use efficiency will not yield the desired results. Even if you try to have a improved agricultural practices, but unless we have a charges associated with the water, unless you convey the value of the water in terms of economic value as well as scarcity value, the initiatives that we take for increasing water use efficiency will not yield the desired results. It has been recognized all over the world that to have a sustainable water infrastructure, recovery of O&M cost as well as capital cost, or at least part of the capital cost, is essential to a well-designed water tariff. The interest on the capital investment is also an important ingredient of the cost. In advanced countries, even the cost of environmental damage due to water resources project is also charged upon the water users through water rates. Historically, water rates are designed on the basis of recovering O&M cost with the objective of making the water infrastructure financially sustainable. But as the water scarcity increases, the objective of increasing water use efficiency through water rates gets higher priority. It is well established that rational water rates have profound influence on curtailing the wastages, overuse, and efficient use of water. When used innovatively, water rates can act as a means not only for recovery of the cost, but also to convey the scarcity and economic value of it. And as demonstrated by the countries where water is treated as an economic good, it is most effective tool for demand management through improving and incentivizing water efficiency and also water conservation. We will have a brief review of the recommendations of various committees that Government of India constituted to look into the issue of water pricing. The first major recommendation were given by Irrigation Commission in 1970, wherein the thought was that the water rate should relate to the benefit rather than to the cost. That means the economic consideration of the water was given a priority. It should relate to the crop and season. It should consider the cropping needs of the soil. The recommendation was that the water rate should be 5% of the food crops and 12% for the cash crops for the total value of the farm. So basically, the idea was the water charges were dependent on the benefit that the user gets from the water rather than the cost of providing the water. So this was the very important recommendation by the Irrigation Commission in 1972. Consequently, after 15 years, we had our first national water policy adopted in 1987. Here, the view was slightly different, and our national water policy basically recommended that the water rate should be adequate to cover the annual maintenance and operation charges and also a part of fixed cost. A consideration was also there that the water rate should give due regard to the interest of small and marginal farmers. So you can see the difference between a recommendation of a committee and the policy statement in our national water policy. Subsequently, in 1992, Government of India constituted a special committee for pricing of irrigation water. This committee was headed by Dr. A. Vaidyanathan, member of Parliament, Planning Commission, and expert from Madras Institute of Developmental Studies. He was supported by eminent experts like Ramaswamy Iyer, B. N. Navlawala, V. V. Patel, M. S. Reddy. This committee submitted its report in 1992, and this committee was also viewed that it is difficult to accept the case for subsidizing such a user-oriented and capital incentive infrastructure such as irrigation. And even if not as a tax, water rate should form a part of user charge. And this committee recommended a two-part tariff, 50 rupees as a membership charge, and a variable charge to cover the O&M cost and also 1% interest on the capital cost. And the ultimate objective recommended was to move towards the full cost recovery. A implementing mechanism was also given in terms of three-phase implementation. Government of India did not accept the fixed cost part, but the variable part, which was to cover O&M and 1% of interest on the capital cost was accepted. Later on, there was another committee, National Committee on Integrated Water Resources Development. Dr. Hashim was the chairman, and this committee submitted its report in 1999. And this committee was of view that in India we should consider water as both economic and social good and try to balance it. It also emphasized that the recovery of the charges is also an important part. This particular commission combined the charges of the recommendation of Irrigation Commission and Vaidyanathan Committee, and it come out with a formula that we should cover the O&M cost also, and we should also charge to the users on the basis of benefit that they are getting from the water, because water acts as one of the important ingredient for economic activities, whether it is agriculture, whether it is industry, whether it is energy. So their recommendation was, in addition to the O&M cost recovery, we must also charge them on the basis of benefit that they are going to get from it. That is 1% on farm produce for food crop and higher percentage for cash crops and higher percentage from the industries. And here they also recommended for incentive to the users whoever is having a volumetric supply. Subsequently, we had our national water policy, where the earlier recommendation of national water policy 1987 was further modified, and it was now restricted for recovery of only O&M cost initially and a part of the capital cost subsequently. Now you can understand that whenever it is a committee, the committee takes a very pragmatic and practical view, and wants that the water to be treated as economic good and wants the recovery for the full cost. Whereas whenever it comes to the national water policy, the national water policy is slightly biased towards the social aspect of the water, and the policy now in 2002 was saying that we should recover only the O&M cost. The policy that is in vogue now is National Water Policy 2012, which is currently in vogue. This particular policy dealt water pricing in much more detail, and it also supported the contention of the various committees that except for the drinking water purposes and except for the purpose of supporting livelihood of the poor through agriculture and ensuring food security, the water should increasingly be subjected to the allocation on pricing on economic principles. Not only this policy gave the recommendation, but it also gave recommendation for the mechanism, because it is very important that we can have a discussion, academic discussion on water pricing. We can have a various methods and approaches, but unless there is a mechanism, institutional mechanism in place for deciding the water rates in a very transparent manner, and also for implementing it, it won't really happen. So this particular policy recommended that we should have an independent water regulatory authority in each state for fixing and regulating the water tariff in an autonomous manner, and such tariff should also be periodically reviewed by this particular authority. Why this was recommended? This was recommended basically because we all know that water is a very sensitive issue, and for government increasing the water rates in line with the increasing cost or assigning it a economic value to ensure water use efficiency is very difficult because of the political implications of it. As I said, there are various interplay of factors which come into play when the issue comes to the water pricing. So it is always better that this issue of water charging is given to an independent water regulatory authority on the similar lines as is being done in energy sector, so that it gets isolated from the political considerations. So this particular policy has recommended that we should have a water resources regulatory authority in each state. And it also recommended that water should be provided to the users on volumetric basis, because that is very important when it comes to the aspect of or leveraging water prices as a tool for effecting water use efficiency. As we all know that in irrigation sector, it is very easy to say that we should provide the water on a volumetric basis, but while implementing it, Government of India or state government, or for that matter the water service provider, cannot supply the water on a volumetric basis to each and every farmer. We need a intermediate institutional mechanism called water user association, to which we can give on a volumetric basis, and further distribution among the farmers, recovery of the cost, maintenance of the irrigation system has to be done by WUAs. And so this recommendation finds its place in the NWP 2012. The policy also recognizes a very close connection and nexus between the price of electricity and inefficient use of water. Whenever there is a free electricity, the tendency to use water indiscriminately is very high. So this particular nexus was also recognized by the policy, and it said that if we have to have a proper water prices, we also need to have a proper pricing for the electricity. We should have a separate electric feeders to implement it. Now, up till now, various committees and various policies were only giving the recommendations. For a first time, the Finance Commission, 13th Finance Commission, made an effort to enable the state or to incentivize the state to implement these recommendations. This Finance Commission was chaired by Dr. Vijay Kelkar, And this finance commission set aside a kitty of rupees 5,000 crore as an incentive to the states for implementing various measures. So this 5,000 crore grant was conditional, and the conditions were they were to be given on real O&M of the irrigation infrastructure, not on salary. Okay, they are to be granted in addition to the normal expenditure for improvement in the overall system. A target was given to each state that they have to effect the recovery beyond that target, because we all know just having a water rate structure is not sufficient. It is also important that those water rates are recovered from the users. So water recovery percentage is also very important. So this finance commission gave different targets for different states. Why they gave different targets, we'll see that. And it also incentivized states for establishing water resources regulatory authority, so that the issue of water pricing is given to an independent authority. So this had a very good impact. When it comes to regulatory authority, the Finance Commission specified that the authority has to be appropriately empowered. There is no point in having authority and not empowering it appropriately. So the 3 points that they were given, that the authority that must have, that means it should have a powers to regulate and fix the water tariff systems for all charges, including domestic, agriculture, industrial, and other all purposes. It should determine and regulate the distribution of entitlement for various categories. When we have one particular project and there are different type of users, domestic, industrial, this how much water will go to what user, entitlement of different user, because this is also very important aspect, and this also needs to be isolated from the political considerations. So the other important aspect that was on which the authority was required to be empowered was regulation and distribution of entitlement for different water user sectors. And then it should not be a one-time measure. The periodical review and monitoring of the water sector cost and revenues is also an important task which must be given to this independent authority. As I said, one of the important parameters that the Finance Commission gave for the states as a target was a cost recovery. Now, if you see the cost recovery statistics of various states in India, you will find some of the states have that cost recovery percentage less than 15%. Okay. Some of the states are having 15 to 75%. Some states are doing good, like Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh. Their recovery rate was more than 75%. In Northeast and hilly states, most of the states were having less than 15% of the recovery rate, but Manipur was having a slightly better condition than the others. With the nudging from the Finance Commission, with the incentives that were provided, some of the states indeed established water resources regulatory authorities in their states. And this is the list which I have given on the screen. Some of the states enacted laws for it. Some of the states did it through ordinances and notifications. But here you will see that some states had already established regulatory authorities way back in 2005, 2006, 2008. Certainly, some of the states, after nudging from the Finance Commission, established in 2012, 2013, 14, etc. But then you might ask, what made the other state establish the authority before the Finance Commission incentives? Basically, because many of the states were aware of the issues and they took the initiatives on their own. Some of the states were having water infrastructure improvement program with the funding from the World Bank. And as you know, whenever there is a funding from the external agencies, they put certain conditions, because when they fund your project, they also want that there should be reforms in your sector. So some of the external funding agencies had put conditions that we will provide the funding, but one of the condition is you have to establish water regulatory authority. And some of the state like UP established in 2008, basically under a World Bank funded project as a precondition of the World Bank funded project. Similarly, Andhra Pradesh established it. So if you see today, the list of states is as seen on the screen. That means there are many states who have not yet established the regulatory authorities, and formulating the water charges and implementing it still remains in the domain of the government. Recently, last year in 2023, we had a first All India Annual State Ministers Conference with the theme of water vision at 2047 in January at Bhopal. This conference came out with 22 recommendations, and one of the important recommendation was that a single regulating body is required at the state level for groundwater as well as surface water, because many states have different institutional authorities, different departments looking after the surface water and looking after the groundwater. But the recommendation of this particular committee was that this conference was that we should have a single authority to regulate surface as well as groundwater in a holistic manner. Recently, in the month of January 2024, and as a follow-up of the conference of ministers conference, we had an all India secretaries conference at Mahabalipuram, and in this conference also the issue was deliberated. The follow-up action taken on the recommendation of the earlier conference were deliberated, and the two things and the few important takeaways from this conference included that water resources authority needs to be constituted by every state. Okay. Moreover, the water tariff mechanism for rationalized water tariff mechanism needs to be developed by each and every state. Now, with this background of institutional mechanism and policy framework, now we'll go to the details of what are the cost recovery principles when it comes to recover the cost from the users. We know that whenever there is a water resources project, whether it is a storage project or diversion project, there is a direct capital cost. It includes capital cost, depreciation, interest. Then there is a variable cost, which includes operation and maintenance of the storage structure, of the water conveyance system, of the water delivery system, the related salary of the establishment, and also the administrative cost. The cost we normally in India we don't take into account, but yes, there is environmental cost also associated with the water resources project in terms of due to excavation, due to soil erosion, due to the subsequent water logging and salinity. Also, the cost associated with the disposal of waste and discharge, which is an indirect cost, is also associated. Is also an environmental cost, which is required to be recovered from the water use. Water users. There are countries in the world, in advanced advanced countries, even some cost of environmental damage is inbuilt into the water charges. There is another very important cost which is also needs to be included in a water recovery principles. Cost recovery principles is a marginal user cost. Now, what happens is this is nothing but a present value of the future sacrifice due to current resource use. Now, suppose there is a confined aquifer, and we are a present generation is excessively using it. The extraction rate is much more than the recharge rate. So, what will happen after some time? The aquifer will get dried up. So, the future generation will have to spend more. They won't have accessibility. They will have to go much longer distance. They will have to spend more. The cost associated with the water accessibility for them will be very high. So that cost is basically because of the overuse by the current generation. So that cost has to be paid by the present generation. So it is the present value of the future sacrifice because of the current overuse. Okay, so that is called marginal user cost. So these costs are required to be inbuilt into our costing mechanism if we have to recover each and every cost that is associated with providing the water to the user. So if we have to write an equation for that, it becomes recovery cost is O&M plus depreciation plus taxes and plus cost of capital including interest. If we don't take into account the environmental and marginal opportunity cost. Now, another aspect is how much to be recovered from each type of user. Say, for example, there is a water resources project. The water is used for domestic purpose, water is used for industrial purpose, water is used for irrigation purpose, for fisheries, for navigation, so on and so forth. So how to divide the cost, principal cost as well as the O&M cost among various water use sectors? Now, there are various principles. The first principle is use of facilities. That means proportional to the water delivered for each use. Okay, so this is basically the volumetric charging for the water. The other consideration can be the benefits that are derived by each water user from the water that he is getting. So obviously, the benefits when it goes to the criteria is a benefits. The industry will have to pay more culture and fisheries. So that is one criteria. There are two more very important economic criteria called alternative justifiable expenditure and second cost remaining benefits. They are quite complex in understanding and calculation also, but I will just tell you the fundamental principle. The principle is like this. When you construct a water resources project, suppose this particular project is to be considered only as an irrigation project, how much will be the expenditure? If it is to be considered only as a water supply project, domestic water supply project, how much will be the expenditure? If it is to be considered only as an industrial supply, what will be the expenditure? But by combining all the three uses, we have come out with a combined design. So what is the total cost? So these factors are taken into account while assigning the capital cost to each user sector. So I will not go into much details of this one, but yes, AJE and SCRB are very important principles which particularly come into play whenever there is a division of cost between the two states which are developing a joint project, or three states which are developing a joint project. Now, to understand the issue of charging to this water use sectors, I have given the example in this slide. Say, for example, we have three dams: Nagarjuna Sagar, Tungabhadra, and Sriram Sagar, and the use of facilities or the volumetric consumption by each sector is there. But if you go only by the volumetric consumption, then we won't be able to charge hydropower and fisheries, which do not actually consume the water as such. They use the water, but whatever the water they after power generation, the water is given back to the system. So when we take into account the benefits received by that particular water use sector combined with the volumetric consumption by domestic, industry, and irrigation, then we can have a different matrix for charging the water. The another criteria or another method for pricing is average cost, marginal opportunity cost, and opportunity cost. Now, what are these costs? Average cost basically indicates that every user will pay the average of fixed and variable cost. There won't be any differentiation between the old user and the new user, okay, or user of X project and user of Y project. Everybody will have to give an average fixed cost and average variable cost. Against uh, uh, the other method is the marginal cost, which is based on the cost of providing incremental unit of water. That means the old users and new users are treated separately. The investment required for making the water available to the new users, they will make payment as per the new investment, whereas the old users will continue to pay based on the old investment. So that is the marginal cost. Marginal opportunity cost basically is based on the cost of providing an incremental unit of water plus all other relevant costs like environment, future implications, depletion, or scarcity cost. And opportunity cost is a pricing principle purely a function of demand and supply. That means basically the water rates are decided by the market forces and purely by supply and demand. Having a pricing scheme for domestic and industry on the basis of volumetric water supply is fairly easy, not much issue. But for irrigation, having a pricing scheme itself is a challenge, basically because the widespread nature of the users, the size of the holding, so on and so forth. So fundamentally, we start pricing the irrigation water based on the area. Area pricing is basically that the farmer has to pay based on the area of irrigation. Now, this method is very simple to implement, very easy to understand, doesn't require a very, very big institutional mechanism to implement it, doesn't require any meters. It has a very low implementation cost, very easy to understand for the farmers. But the biggest drawback of this system is there is no incentive to the farmer to save the water, because he is paying based on the area. He will use rather more, overuse the water, resulting in excessive consumption of the water also, and also the low productivity. So this type of system is only suitable where plenty of water is available and where implementing volumetric water supply is not possible. But we can modify this pricing scheme, which is area based, with certain additional parameters to make it more robust and to achieve the objective of incentivizing the farmer for saving the water and also affecting the water use efficiency. So the variation is area crop. Not only we charge for the area, but we also charge depending on the type of crop that we are having. Second variation is, in addition to the crop, we charge for the irrigation method, whether it is a gravity irrigation or whether it is a lift irrigation. We also charge based on the season, different rates for the different season, basically because we have different availability in monsoon season, the rabi season, and also the dry season. So higher the rates will be there for dry and rabi season, low rates will be there for the monsoon season. Then we can incentivize the farmer to go for the micro irrigation. We can have a technology aspect also, whether he's using drip irrigation, whether the he's using sprinkler irrigation, different rates will also be there. So area based pricing, when combined with crop, irrigation, season, and technology, makes it achieve the objective of water use efficiency also. But then we have many parameters to parameters to charge the water, and that makes it slightly complex and also for the slightly difficult for farmers to understand. It has been established all over the world that volumetric pricing of water is the best pricing method for a recovery of the cost also, and for incentivizing the water use efficiency also. Even though it is having a high implementation cost, because you need to have a appropriate measuring devices at all places. You also need to have an appropriate institutional mechanism for taking the readings, to raise the bills, to monitor the these measurements and billing systems, etc. So volumetric pricing, though is best, is always associated with a high implementation cost. This particular system can be further modified with telescopic charges to cater to the requirement of social welfare, such that the initial slabs will have a lower rates and the next higher slabs will have a higher rates. For example, here I have given a example of Jeba project of Brazil, where they are having two charges: capital cost recovery with 50-year return period, and another charge which recovers fixed O&M and variable O&M cost. One of the pricing method is to leave it to the market mechanism, whereby the water rights and the water entitlements can be sold and purchased by the users depending upon their requirement. Here, the equilibrium price will be adjusted based on the demand and supply. In the world, we have societies, we have states, we have river basin authorities, where this is actually followed, where water is treated as a purely economic good, and we have a market controlled water pricing. But this system also requires certain prerequisites. First of all, it requires a very well defined water structure of water rights. It also requires that the water rights are separated from the land rights. Water and land rights are separated so that there can be a trading separately for the water rights and separately for the land rights. There needs to be a clear and comprehensive rules for trading. There needs to be a entity or institutional mechanism for managing the water delivery as per the trading or the buying and purchasing mechanism. A judiciary body to oversee the trading and dispute resolution. And it also requires well-developed conveyance system, because even if you sell the right of water to somebody else, he should be able to take that water from one place to other place. So this also requires a very good conveyance system, and that's why probably such kind of things are implemented within a river basin, because it is easier to transfer the water within a river basin rather than across the river basin. Up till now, we have discussed about the water rates, but it is also very important that recovery from the water rate is achieved up to a benchmark percentage. Then only the gains from rational water charges can be realized. At present, most of the states in India have abysmally low recovery rates, particularly in the irrigation sector, which is the biggest user of water. World Bank has some time back conducted a study in various parts of the world to understand that why the cost recovery is less and what can be done to improve the cost recovery. So the finding of this World Bank is that there is no link between fee collected and funds allocated to an irrigation project. There is a lack of farmer participation. So farmer is not really in the knowledge of the project planning and management issues. There is a poor communication and lack of trust and transparency between the farmer and the water service provider. The water service delivery itself is very poor, and this we see in India also, that uh, when we visit various projects, the farmers do tell us that they are ready to pay if they are getting reliable and timely water supply in terms of and also the quantity. But we have certain issues in terms of water service delivery. So this is a very important factor. The farmers, the users are ready to pay, provided the service is of good quality. Secondly, whenever there is no penalty for the non-payment, the people who are paying, they also get discouraged, and after some time you will find nobody pays. So penalty for non-payment is a very important aspect for implementing authorities. Low priority given to fee collection, efficient water use and system O&M is also one of the reasons. And the third reason is a very small size and very low income of the irrigated farms. Basically, the marginal farmers who don't have that much of income to afford the payment of water charges. So what are the measures that the World Bank recommended for improving the collection? First of all, there has to be financial autonomy to the entity which is collecting the water charges. The financial autonomy is required basically so that the water charges which are collected are spent on the O&M of the system and for improving the water delivery. There has to be some incentive to these institutions also to collect the charges. Better service to the farmers, penalty for non-payment, user participation and building of trust between the farmers and the water supply provider is very important, and that is possible only when we have a system transparency. Now, if we see all across the world, which are the countries where there are market mechanisms implemented for deciding the water rates, and one example is Australia. Way back in 1995, Australia, not whole of the Australia, but certain river basins of the Australia, certain water providers, they have removed their cross subsidies. Whatever subsidy is there, it is very transparent. They have implemented water entitlements, water rights, separating the water right from the land right as such. Government of Australia has also made a distinction between a water resources management and water service provision. So there are different authorities for storing and conveying the water, and different authorities for water service provision. There is a two-part tariff for urban water. Trading in water entitlements or allocations is allowed. Rural water also has a full cost recovery with transparent subsidies, and new projects are also to be taken only when it is economically viable. In Brazil, charging to various water use sector is done on a principle which takes into account the total water provided to them, the quantity of water consumed during the process or during the use, and quantity and quality of the water returned back to the system. So it has a three parameters for all water use sectors: how much is the withdrawal, out of the withdrawal, how much is the consumption, and what is the quality of water that you pay back. These three parameters have been considered in formulating the water charges, and there are different factors for different water use sector for each of the parameters. So these are the typical water rate charges in Brazil. Just to give you the idea about the relative relative rate for each water use sector. Chile is one of the country in the world which implemented water market reforms very early, rather one of the first country in the world to introduce water market through use of market mechanism. They allowed sale and transfer of water rights on an auction basis. It created a value for the water. It led to most economic use, very high water use efficiency. But at the same time, it also led to speculation and hoarding. So Chile is a very good example that if you go for a water market without having appropriate checks and balances to safeguard the interest of the poor communities or weaker sections of the society, then you can have an issue in your hand. Or the market mechanism itself will try to have a speculative and other issues. So later on, in 2005, Chile introduced some water reforms wherein government of Chile took some powers in its hand to safeguard the rights of the weaker sections of the society. They also excluded certain water resources from the economic competition. They started a license fee for unused water rights so as to discourage hoarding and speculation. Normally, when we talk about the water charges, we talk about the surface water, but it is important to understand that groundwater is also a very important commodity which needs to be charged if we have to ensure regulate the the water extraction, and also to effect water use efficiency in respect of groundwater. One of a good example is a Shandong province of China, which mostly depends upon the groundwater for its irrigation. Very little surface water resource is there. Now, in this province, there are numerous tube wells. It was a challenge for the government to regulate the extraction by these tube wells. So obviously, the technology was leveraged, and it was made compulsory that every tube well will have a prepaid card. The tube well will function only on the basis of charge or the balance available in the prepaid card. The prepaid card will have a SIM by which it will be connected to a central server. All data regarding the water extraction by a particular tube well will be shared with the central server, and central server will receive the data from all the tube wells, and it will be possible for the managers to monitor the extraction in a real-time basis. Now, this particular system had a very good impact, basically because of the prepaid system, the farmer needed to charge its card. Then farmer had a complete knowledge about how much water it has been used, for how much time it has been run. The same information was available to the service provider also, and because it was a charges on based on the volumetric basis, they could achieve a very good level of water use efficiency. Now, coming to the water pricing in India, what we have the level of rates in India in various states. Now, if you see the status of water rates in India, you will find that many of the states have not revised their water rates for the last 20, 25, 30 years. Now, this is very understandable, basically because many times there is a competition among the political parties to make promises to the people for giving free water, free power. So it's a sensitive issue wherein what raising the water charges is always considered as a sensitive issue by the incumbent governments, and that's why many years the water charges have not been revised by the state governments. And as we saw in the earlier study slides, even the Water Regulatory Authority has also been established only by a few states, and that are also not functioning in a fullest way, except probably Maharashtra Water Regulatory Authority, for which we have a special session being taken by Dr. S.A. Kulkarni, who was the former secretary of NRA. If you see the water charges at present by different states, you will find a pattern in that one. Let us try to understand one crop, that is a wet crop, that is particularly paddy. In Andhra Pradesh, we have a rate something about 494 rupees per hectare since 96. Okay. In Assam, the rate for different variety of paddy, that is Ahu, Sali, Bahu paddy, ranges from 281 to 751. In Bihar, the rate in vogue since 2011 is about 217 rupees per hectare for paddy and 185 per feet. I came across a very good pamphlet in Bihar, whereby the government of Bihar is trying to educate the farmers. They call it as a patwankar. कि patwankar की आवश्यकता क्यों है? And they have issued a pamphlet for the benefit of farmers, wherein they have given a reasoning that why farmers need to pay the water charges. और उन्होंने comparison भी दिया है कि बिहार में बाकी राज्यों के कंपैरिजन में, उत्तर प्रदेश, महाराष्ट्र, आंध्र प्रदेश के कंपैरिजन में कम रेट है. So this is a very good initiative by government of Bihar to create a mass awareness among the farmers for payment of water charges. अब छत्तीसगढ़ का अगर देखेंगे, the paddy rate is about 200 rupees, banana is 741, cotton is 172. In Goa, paddy is 180 by flow irrigation and 360 by lift irrigation. Water rates in Haryana have been announced recently in 2018. They have categorized the crops in the categories of cereals, lentils, then cash crops like paddy, oat, vegetables, etc. If you see the paddy, here it is 100 rupees per acre, that means 250 rupees per hectare. Recently, government of Haryana has also issued notification for bulk water rates, which is issued by Haryana Water Resources Authority in 2022. Here they have given as to what is the current stage of revenue with a existing tariff and what is going to be the estimated revenue with proposed tariff. Here you can see that they have increased the drinking water charges almost by 5%, 5 times. Industries 2 times and 2.5 times. Irrigation charge has not been changed, and they're expecting that the annual revenue will go up from existing 184 crore to 468 crore. If you see Karnataka, the paddy charge is 247 with flow irrigation and 741 with a lift irrigation, and for a annual crop like sugarcane, it's 988 and 2965. In Kerala, because Kerala has a plenty of water availability, so their rates are slightly low on a lower side. It's about 62 rupees for 2 paddy crops and 99 rupees for more than 2 paddy crops. In Manipur, it is 305. Surprisingly, in Rajasthan, where we expect that because of the paucity of water, this availability of water, we expect the water rates in Rajasthan to be on a reasonable side. But here, if you will find that with flow irrigation, the rate is 113 rupees, and with lift irrigation, it is 227 rupees. Rajasthan also does not have a water resources regulatory authority established, and the rates which are in vogue are since 1999. So almost 25 years old the rates are. In J&K, the level of rate for paddy is 523 rupees. By lift, it is 2,614. Now, these rates were for surface water. And as we saw, most of the states have rate for paddy, which is a benchmark, is about 200 to 300 or 400 rupees, except the case of Rajasthan and Kerala, because of the water availability issue. And in Rajasthan, we don't have water resources regulatory authority. But apart from charging the surface water rate, surface water, it is also important to have a rate for the groundwater. At present, the at a central level, we have a Central Groundwater Resources Authority (CGWA), which has been mandated to formulate the water regulation guidelines as well as water charges. And the water charges given by this authority is as given in the table. Here, the water charges are on the basis of monthly withdrawal 0 to 25, 26 to 50 meter cube, and then greater than 50 meter cube. Here, the water charges are dependent upon the category of the area, whether the area is safe, semi-critical, critical, or overexploited. As you might be knowing, CGWB, in association with the state government, publishes every year the status of groundwater recharge in the country. And depending upon the exploitation of the groundwater resource, the areas have been categorized as same, semi-critical, critical, and overexploited. So depending upon the area, the rates are different. There are different rates for water extraction by industries and infrastructure projects, and different rates for bulk and tanker water supplies. But the issue in groundwater charges is, even though CGWA has given the water charges, but monitoring and volumetric measurement of this water extraction remains an issue, and we do not have yet established a well-established mechanism or institutional framework to monitor the groundwater extraction. In fact, Government of India have circulated a model bill for regulation of groundwater to all the states from time to time. This bill is expected to have a proper regulation and monitoring of the groundwater extraction. However, only 21 states have enacted those laws, and these laws are more stronger than the guidelines of CGWA in only 15 states. So as you can see it in this map, the colored states are the states which are still getting governed by CGWA, that is the Central Groundwater Authority, rather than the own laws of the state governments. We have in the afternoon a dedicated session on regulation and pricing of groundwater by Shri Sunil Kumar, former chairman of CGWA. Recently, Government of Punjab issued guidelines for charging of groundwater. They have divided the whole state of Punjab in three categories. Green category having less than 100% of groundwater extraction, yellow category 100 to 199, and orange category greater than 200. And this notification has a different rate for green, yellow, and orange area depending upon the level of extraction, as per the table given in this. We were talking about the recovery charges vis-a-vis the expenditure by the state on operation and maintenance, and also the capital expenditure. We can have a look at the status in India in various states as to how the recovery compares with the capital cost as well as O&M cost. So in case of Assam, as you can see it here, the recovery is very, very minimal with respect to the working expenses, which are shown in blue color, and the gross receipt is shown in the yellow color, whereas green color is for the capital outlay. So as compared to the capital outlay and working expenditure, the recovery is much, much low in Assam. Almost 50%, rather much less than 50%, rather I would say. In Bihar, the recovery is very low. In Chhattisgarh, it is comparable with respect to the O&M cost. In Goa, it is about 50%. In Haryana, it is very low, maybe less than 15%. In Jharkhand also, it was low, but in the recent times, the recovery has improved. And I'm going to give a very a small case study as to why the Jharkhand could achieve a better recovery in their water charges. Karnataka, again, very low as compared to the capital and working cost. Kerala, again, very low. Orissa, good rate of recovery with respect to operating cost, but low with respect to capital cost. Now, as I said, there are two important aspects: having a water rate which are reasonable, fair, and just, and also formulated in consultation with the stakeholders. And secondly, having an appropriate mechanism for recovery of the water charges. Now, there is one small case study of Jharkhand, which had adopted up till 2011 the same rate as of Bihar at that time, because it was bifurcated from Bihar, and there was only one category: industrial/commercial. When Jharkhand modified its rates in 2011, they created three categories. In addition to industrial and commercial, there was cold drink, beverage, and mineral water, and then municipality, drinking water, and sanitation department. And they had a different rate for water withdrawal from river, from dam, and from canal. So this was done without any consultation with the stakeholders. But this type of structuring of the water rates created a lot of disputes, litigations, issues. As you know, that Jharkhand is a minerally rich state. There are many industries, institutions, and because of this new water tariff was not having very clarity about what is to be charged from industrial houses which has a municipal area within their premises. This led to litigations. So there was a dispute with Tata Steel on two accounts. The colonies of the industrial area were also charged as per the industrial rate rather than the rate of a municipal corporation. Secondly, even though they were drawing water from the river, they were charged dam rates, basically because the location from where the water was being diverted or was taken up was downstream of the dam. So these issues led to litigation with Tata Steel and also with Adhunik Power and many other industrial units. There was a lot of pending charges with a lot of penal interest, so on and so forth. Even BIT Mishra, which is the educational institute, they were also being charged at the industrial rate. The delay interest was very high. So the government of Jharkhand tried to understand and they did the causal analysis of the disputes, and it was noted that the bifurcation, the categorization of the water users that they made, and also the sources of the water, they lacked clarity. The delay charges are also very high. The notification of 2011 was not done without any stakeholder consultation, and the rate of water rate jump was very high. So to resolve the disputes and to also improve the compliance, they thought of having a better classification of the sources as well as consumers, fair pricing for the area where there is a domestic use, reasonable rate, interest rate on the delay of the payment, and then stakeholder consultation before the next tariff notification. And recently, last year, government of Jharkhand came out with a new notification where all these issues were addressed. And before making these rates, formulating this rate, they had a comprehensive consultation with the stakeholders. And now most of the issues have been resolved. And if you see the recovery or the revenue from the water charges, now it is going up. So in 2023 itself, it had gone up to 150 crore. In 23-24, the projected is 200 crores, and 24-25, it's likely to be further more. So in a nutshell, when water rates are formulated on a fair and just manner, in consultation with the stakeholders and in a transparent manner, the recovery rate improves. We have a special lecture tomorrow on Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority, but I just wanted to highlight in my presentation that this authority is the first functional authority in India established by statute in 2005, and this authority has been appropriately, authorized, empowered by the government of Maharashtra through its statutory provisions, and it had the power for sectoral allocation. It has a power to decide the bulk volumetric charges for irrigation and non-irrigation usages. It has a power to revise the rate periodically. It has a power to give incentives to the water user associations and water conservation. It also has the power to for clearance of new projects which are in conformity with the integrated state water plan of Maharashtra. In fact, Maharashtra is the only state or one of the first state to have a river basin plans, and then all these river basins plans are combined to have an integrated state water resources plan. And this water resources plan is a guiding document for the Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority for clearance of new water resources project. Government of Maharashtra has also nominated the same authority for state groundwater resources as well. So this particular authority is having authority on surface water as well as groundwater. So I will not go into the much details of this one, basically because this particular topic is going to be covered very comprehensively tomorrow by Dr. S.A. Kulkarni sir. So I will simply skip the slides, and I will conclude by saying that we need a very strong legal and institutional framework to formulate and implement the water charges. And this includes proper laws and institutional mechanism like Water Resources Regulatory Authority. We need community involvement in the resource management. We need better water service so that people feel like paying for the water charges. We need to have cost recovery and also scarcity and economic value assigned to the water. We need to have penalty for non-payment. System transparency and mass awareness are also equally important. And we can leverage technology for volumetric charging requirement to measure the water supply for surface as well as for groundwater. And last but not the least, we require political will. Basically, because as we saw, very few states have empowered their authorities to take the water rates issue forward. So ultimately, unless we have a political will, we will not be go much forward in the matter of water charges. Thank you. I conclude my presentation, and I thank all of you for patience listening. And if there are any questions, we can take those questions, please.
So thank you very much, sir. Sir, there are few questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay, I will see the chat box. Just a moment.
Meanwhile, other participants, if they have any query, they can unmute themselves and they can pose their question one after another.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Yeah, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have seen so many water regulatory act of the other state like Maharashtra, Bihar, and all.
Yeah.
And so for Manipur, we don't have any regulatory for this regard. So, in which way shall we process?
For establishing water resources regulatory authority, your government needs to bring a law and get it passed in the state assembly, empowering that particular authority for various matters that I enumerated, like charges, allocation to various water use sectors. So basically, it depends upon the law that is passed by the state government. Then only that authority gets appropriate powers to take the issue forward. So one of the first thing that each state needs to do is to formulate a legal act, formulate a bill, and get it passed in the respective legislative assembly. MWRRA, Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority, is a very good model because it is a working model. Rather, it is one of the first working model in India, which is working very satisfactorily up till now. So that bill can be used as a model bill to work further upon.
Thank you, sir. Myself, Dilip Kumar from Water Resource Department as Chief Engineer, former Chief Engineer. एक्चुअली सर ये शिकायत रहती है कि किसान लोग कीमत देने के लिए तैयार नहीं हैं और कंप्लेन होता है कि नहीं दे पाते हैं। मेन सर इसमें ये बात है कि जो कॉस्ट क्रॉप का जो कॉस्ट हम लोग फिक्स करते हैं उसमें वाटर प्राइसिंग का एक्चुअल कॉस्ट हम लोग नहीं दे पाते हैं, सरकार नहीं देती है। तो फिर किसान से हम लोग क्यों अपेक्षा करते हैं कि वो एक्चुअल कॉस्ट दे हमारा? तो सब्सिडाइज जब हम उसके क्रॉप के रेट को सब्सिडाइज कर रहे हैं तो वाटर रेट को भी हम लोग को उसके कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग चेंज करना होगा। तो इंटरनल कॉस्ट में जो जो चीजें पर कॉस्ट आती है वो चीजों को देखना होगा किसानों को, और उसके अनुपात में हम लोग को किसान से रिकवरी लेना होगा, क्योंकि 70% वाटर यूज इरिगेशन सेक्टर का है, मैक्सिमम रेवेन्यू इरिगेशन सेक्टर से ही आता है। तो इरिगेशन सेक्टर में यही बात है कि उसका जो प्रोडक्ट है उसकी कीमत में आपने वाटर प्राइस को डाला ही नहीं है, बहुत मिनिमम डाला है। अब फिर हम चाहते हैं कि वो मैक्सिमम पैसा दे, एक्चुअल कॉस्ट का प्रोजेक्ट का कॉस्ट दे। तो ये दोनों चीजें सर कंफ्लिक्टिंग है, इस पर थोड़ा सा सरकार को ध्यान देना चाहिए। Thank you, sir.
बिल्कुल. You have said rightly. Actually, it is a very vicious cycle. We are unable to provide good services to the farmers, timely services for the farmers because our infrastructure is not up to the mark. And because farmers are not paying, they are not getting the good service, so they are not paying. If they pay, then we'll be able to invest the amount for improvement in our services. In any case, what we charge to the farmers is not the cost, the total cost of the water as such. Depending upon the national priorities, depending upon the priorities of your state, depending upon the policy of your state, you may like to, or depending upon the incentives that you want to give to the farmers for changing the crops or changing the cropping pattern, we may like to have a differential pricing for different crops. You may like to have a very high rate for sugarcane and paddy and very low rate for other crops. So rate may not reflect the cost consideration in 100%. Okay. As I said, the rate that you define or structure for a particular crop for a particular season, or rates structured by a particular authority, may not reflect the full cost as such. Okay, there can be many other objectives also. Okay, there can be many other objectives. So, but one thing is there that when, like in case of Maharashtra, they formulate the water charges in consultation with the stakeholders. They keep their calculations in public domain. They go from place to place, project authorities, NGOs, water user associations, they have a discussions with them, and they try to find out and take their opinion also. whatever water charges formulation methodology is there, that is in the public domain. So everybody knows how this particular rate has arrived. Okay, and whether that rate includes the full cost, partial cost, everything. So whenever there is a transparency and whenever there is a good service provision, it has been proved all over the world that people tend to pay regularly, and the recovery of charges is a very high percentage. Okay, so as I said, water rates is a very important multi-dimensional tool to achieve many objectives. Cost recovery is only one objective, but cost recovery, water use efficiency, you may like to use it as a tool to change the crops, changing the crops. You may like to recover only O&M cost. You may like to recover capital cost also. You may like to recover environmental cost also. So it's a tool which has to be used innovatively with combination of factors, but those factors must be known to the people. Okay, then they will have a confidence in paying the amount. Okay, any other comments or clarification from anybody? Any query?
Good afternoon, sir. This is Dr. Prabhakaranand.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon.
Because as long as the water pricing remains as the administered price, then it will be very difficult to collect whatever may be the little or maybe more. So
Yes,
it should be left to the market forces. And the basic economic principle says that the market forces will decide. But there are social welfare measures also, welfare expectation from this, which is very difficult to implement in a state like in a country like India. So best thing will be go for the market forces and decide for the administered prices wherever it is possible. Maybe area basis and volumetry basis may be very optimal process.
As you rightly said,
maybe the marginal cost principle or average cost principle plus cost plus concept may be introduced wherever welfare measures are there. But to leave it to the totally administered price is very difficult to collect. In fact, realize the
yes, as you said, market prices are equilibrium prices decided by demand and supply. And as we saw in the example of Chile, that it always leads to highest water use efficiency, highest output per unit of water, so on and so forth. But then there are pitfalls. And in a country like India, where 65 to 70% population depends upon agriculture, and water is a social good ingrained in our culture, it's very difficult to give the things to the water market. We have experiences of private participation in the water resources project, and the experience has not been very good. So leave aside water rates, even private participation of private entities in water supply or in construction of water resources project has also not been successful. So in India, the best way is to have a regulatory authority.
Yeah,
like
that is better.
In
fact, Maharashtra experience is very good to emulate by the other states.
So that is a middle way where we try to balance, both the things, water as an economic good and water as a social good. And if you see the water rate structured formulated by MWRRA since its inception, you will find a great evolution of way they are going. They are trying to have many objectives. They are trying to encourage the people with micro irrigation. They are trying to encourage the people with volumetric measurements, encouragement to water user association, encouragement to there are social objectives also. Even they have concession for the people who have a family planning measures taken for their family. So social, economic, agricultural practices, water use efficiency, so many objectives can be achieved by proper employing this tool. So as you said, it's a very good example, and I would request all of you to attend the tomorrow's special session on Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority.
So congratulations, sir. Excellent presentation, excellent information. Thank you for so much.
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, बोलिए.
Hello.
बोलिए, आपकी आवाज आ रही है. Good afternoon.
गोवर्धन कुलकर्णी, एक टेलेंडर वाटर यूजर एसोसिएशन का डायरेक्टर हूं सर.
कुलकर्णी साहब, आपका स्वागत है, और ये बहुत अच्छी बात है कि हमारे जो एनडब्ल्यूए का जो प्रयास है वो आप तक पहुंचा है, और वाटर यूजर एसोसिएशन के भी लोग आज हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं. ये बहुत अच्छी बात है, एंड थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग. या प्लीज गो अहेड.
सर जब क्या होता है, जब रोटेशन चलता है तो जो टेल एंडर डब्ल्यू को जो पानी दिया जाता है, वाटर स्पोर्ट्स में किसी वजह से फ्लक्चुएशन आ जाता है, उसकी
Right.
वेलोसिटी कम हो जाती है। वेलोसिटी कम हो जाती है तो वॉल्यूम से तो पानी नापा जाता है, मगर उसकी इरिगेशन इफिशियंसी घटती है, और कमांड के अंदर जितना इरिगेशन एरिया होना चाहिए उतना नहीं होता है। फिर डब्ल्यू को ज्यादा पानी इस्तेमाल करना पड़ता है, और उसके ऊपर एक ब्लेम आ जाता है कि टेल एंडर डब्ल्यू ज्यादा पानी इस्तेमाल करती है। तो मेरा
Right.
सुझाव ये है, एक तो इन डब्ल्यू को वाटर प्राइसिंग में कुछ छूट दी जाए, या कुछ एक्स्ट्रा वाटर एंटरटेनमेंट उनको दिए जाए। बाकी के मुकाबले में 20% 25% एक्स्ट्रा वाटर एंटरटेनमेंट उनको देने चाहिए।
Yes, very valid point है आपका, because and that is the very, this is the very purpose that water resources regulatory authorities they go from place to place. And I will request you that whenever there is a public hearing next time being held by MWRRA, आप प्लीज उसमें ज्वाइन करिएगा और आपका ये कंसर्न भी बताइएगा, और we will also convey your concern to appropriate authorities. It's a very valid point. And that is what we say when we say that we have to consult the stakeholders. Only when you consult the stakeholders, you will be able to understand their difficulties and issues. So thank you for your input, Kulkarni ji.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I am Joint Director from Groundwater, Odisha.
Yeah, please बताइए.
So my question is, nowadays the groundwater depleting. So should we, because some blocks in our state which was under the safe condition now going to be approaching the semi-critical.
Right.
So the price should be enhanced accordingly, sir. हेलो
हेलो, आपकी आवाज बीच में कट हो गई, फिर से एक बार थोड़ा सा रिपीट करेंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा. You are not audible.
हेलो, is it audible, sir?
Your voice is not clear, but sir, I think it is about groundwater pricing and whether pricing can be according to the status of the groundwater.
Yes, it has to be according to the status of this one. Actually, I showed you the tables.
Audible, sir?
You are not audible, but I will explain the things. As of now, the rates for rates given by CGWA are applicable to Odisha, because Odisha doesn't have its own groundwater regulation law as such, and those rates are different for different category of areas. Okay, but I know that the main issue that is being faced by the groundwater authorities is that they don't have institutional mechanism for monitoring the extraction, for measuring the extraction, and then charging the extraction. That part is still weak. So the best way would be to have a law by Odisha for groundwater regulation, and establish groundwater authority, and also empower the groundwater authority resources regulatory authority to formulate the charges, and also to empower the groundwater department for levying and recovery of the charges. I gave one
Thank
example.
you, sir. Thank you.
I gave one example of China, where the tube wells were made, were provided with the prepaid cards. So in India also we may have to find out ways and means by which we would be able to get directly the information as to how much is the extraction by that a particular tube well directly to our office. In fact, CGWA has also made it now compulsory for certain industries that they would install a device, telemetry device on their tube well, and the telemetry device will send the data of water extraction to the CGWA server. Okay, so technology can be employed to overcome these challenges.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think there are no further questions. So I thank all of you for joining this meeting. We will share the PowerPoint presentation to all of you so that if you have missed anything on the slides, you'll be able to go through it once. So I would request Sri Chaitanya ji, who is the webinar coordinator, to share the copy of the presentations to all of you. So thank you, and I give my control back to Chaitanya ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for an informative presentation. And I would like to inform all the participants that we will be sharing all the presentations. Maybe we will create a link instead of sending the presentations. We will create a link and upload all the drive link and upload all the presentations. And we will mail it to the registered email IDs that were provided in the Google registration form. We will have the second session this afternoon at 3 o'clock. We will be having the session on groundwater regulation and pricing by Sri Sunil Kumar, former chairman, Central Groundwater Board. So we will be using the same link to join again at 3 o'clock. I once again thank Sri D.S. Chaskar sir and all the participants for joining this session. Thank you very much.
Before I close, I think I missed the two questions which were there in the chat box, and I think I can address it. One question is by Sri S.K. Mishraji. He says, considering the existence of provisions for the imposition of environmental compensation and environmental damage charges, should these factors be factored into the pricing of water as well? Yes, theoretically, yes. But practically, if you charge the environmental cost, the water charges are going to be very high. In India, as I said, that our national water policy recommends that in India we should charge only the O&M cost, okay, not even the capital cost, because we have a very strong bias for water as a social good. So theoretically, environmental cost is also associated with the water, but in India we do not charge it. Yes, there are certain countries in the world like Australia, South Africa, some part of the Brazil, where they have started charging environmental cost also, but up to some extent, not the full cost as such. But as far as the Indian context is concerned, we do not have any recommendation by any legal or policy framework to charge the environmental cost as such. Then there was another remark by Baiju V from Kerala, that the rates of Kerala has already been revised in 2024, whereas in my slide I showed the old rates. So I have taken the material for my slides from our own publication, Central Water Commission's publication, which brought out a publication on water pricing system in India in 2023, last year. And while preparing the presentation, CWC requested all the states to give their latest orders for the water charges. Probably what Mr. Baiju is referring is that the Kerala issued the order after that. So I will request Mr. Baiju to share the latest Kerala charges with us, and then I will take it up with our headquarter also, and we will update our database accordingly. So thank you, Mr. Baiju, for pointing it out. So these were the two questions which I wanted to address, and now we can conclude.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will meet again at 3 o'clock.